Hi, preschool peeps. We're back.
Hello.
Here we are. And we said a few episodes ago, we said that we were going to be focusing our episodes on the podcast now at looking forward, right? Looking forward to what's going to be and things we need to consider in the future. So in prior episodes, we've talked about maybe the whole system needs to be redone for education and childcare,
Yeah.
right? We've looked at things like things need to be different simply because the numbers don't add up based on the on the requirements now. There are budgetary issues. We also, in our last episode, looked forward from on a different topic having to do with doing better with teaching children about race. So now we're going to look toward the future with this question in mind. Some of the children who are home now, learning from with their families and learning online with staff, but with their families, are thriving. Their skills are actually more advanced than they were in school. They are moving forward in the progression of learning skills faster than they were when they were in school. Some children are thriving at home because they had challenging social situations with peers, and now they don't have that or have to deal with that. Some children with certain challenges struggle for acceptance. Now families can seek out the people they know are emotionally healthy for their children versus having them in the whole melting pot of people.
Yeah.
There are many reasons why some of the children are thriving at home. I actually was observing a Zoom preschool class the other day, which has become one of my favorite things to do.
Yeah.
They are wildly entertaining to watch young children on Zoom. But I was watching, and there was a child on the session who the teachers were talking to, and the child was responding. And when the call was over and I go over my notes with the teachers about the observation, the teachers told me how excited they are about that child because that child was not speaking at all in school. And I'm on Zoom watching this child speaking in short sentences.
Amazing.
Short sentences. I was like, they said they keep telling this child's parents the amazing job they're doing, how they weren't able to accomplish that, even though they provide therapy to this child in school. They weren't able to accomplish it in the school setting. I know of other parents who are, again, their children struggle socially in school for a variety of reasons, because we know kids can be mean, right? Kids can be cruel.
Yeah.
And now the fact that they're able to more carefully select the people with whom their children interact has made such a positive difference in their children's attitudes about themselves, about life, and about learning. We have to learn from this, don't you think?
Yeah. I have a student in my class who always has been pretty awesome with technology, loves technology, probably knows more about a computer than I do, and she's 3, who is thriving at home because she can interact with the children on that technology easier than she can interact with the children in person. So she is actually talking to more students because she doesn't have to do it like in person. She can do it on this technology that she loves. She thinks it's just the coolest thing ever, and it made it easier for her to start conversations rather than doing it in person.
So what do we learn, Alison?
Yeah, I don't know.
But I don't think that we just say to these children and families who are thriving from this at being home, I don't think we just say to them, tough patooties.
Too bad, we're going to throw you back into the old stuff.
I think we need to think about this. We also are in a time where many teachers have told me that they now, because of having to get families up and running on technology, they've developed deeper and better relationships with the families of the children that they teach than they ever have in all their careers. We're in each other's living. You're in my home right now. You're in my house.
Yeah, welcome to my world.
It creates a different atmosphere, right? A different environment. And so people have really benefited. I think the children are benefiting from some of the partnerships that have now been developed between their educators and their parents. Again, what do we learn from that? So if we're going to move forward, I think that we have to acknowledge the value of developing those relationships with families, and the value for some children and families of having something that you and I have mentioned in prior episodes, options.
Yes, the options. Thank you. Okay, but how do we give them all these options? I mean, they're going to have to figure that out, because they can't go back to just the way it was. You can't just say, hey, it didn't work for some kids, but it's working great for others. We don't really care. Back to old school you go. Like, how you can't do that to
back
them.
To old
you can't.
School,
you can't. Back to the old school.
back to the future. I think you're right. I think we really need to pay attention to it on an individual basis. If you have a student, right, who needs therapies, and therapies are hard for families to do at home. I get that, right? Yeah. So let's say they need therapies, but actually spending more time with their families would enable them to progress in the skills that they're trying to learn faster than being in the classroom for 6 hours or 8 hours or whatever it is. We need to think about that.
Gotta think.
Maybe there are children, and when they're talking about who's going to come back first, I mean, that's a whole other thing. So maybe there are children who go back for their therapies for a short period of time of socialization, and then go to your families who've been doing such a great job with you if they're able. If they're home and able. If they're able to,
yeah.
And I think if you're not able to, but you find, I've helped my child so much, we need to think about that too. What time can you carve out?
Yeah, I think like when we kind of went to the distance learning, it made it so that like learning didn't have to happen between 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock. Because I have students that are like, listen, we do a lot of the stuff after dinner because that's when they're ready to learn it. So yeah, carve out the time that works for your family and continue doing whatever was working, And if that time is after dinner instead of at noon, like at school, then do that. Continue to do that.
I really hope that some of the families who are seeing this great success with their children, because of all the hard work that they're doing in cooperation with possibly clinicians and with teachers, I hope that those families take great pride in the role that they have played.
Yeah, I know.
Right?
And that they want to realize it. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. If your children right now, folks, special education or general education, if your children are thriving and learning and their skill levels are increasing right now, kudos to you.
Yeah. I mean, because I think like we've always said, like family is the child's first teacher, right? We've always said that. And then all of a sudden they go to school and it's like, oh, they're not the teachers anymore. Like, no. I think this taught like some children learn way better through their family than through school, than through teachers, and for a variety of reasons probably, but I don't think we should like discount that at all.
I think that many of us in education now will come away from this experience having a different take on people who choose to homeschool.
Yeah.
I think, of course, so. I hope so too. I mean, it's definitely people's option how they want to educate their children in the country in which we live, and people can choose to homeschool. But I also hope that out of this comes maybe a more cooperative spirit and more cooperative pathways to connecting our educational systems with people who homeschool, maybe more coordination. But I think that those of us in educational settings, like I said, we're going to come out of this with a much deeper respect for the, how can I put it? The possibilities that homeschooling can hold for some children. Yes. How was that? You like that phrasing?
I like that.
Mm-hmm. I like that. Those of us who are educated to be educators are often educated with a bias toward the school setting, that this is the only way, that this is what people should be doing.
It's definitely not the only way.
It's not. And we are, those of us who are in the field are now sitting back going, wow, look how well some of them are doing at home. Maybe there is something to that.
There's something to that.
I think homeschooling has to be quality homeschooling. I think there needs to be measures of quality.
Yes.
And I'm not saying you have to bring your kids in for standardized tests. What I'm saying is there needs to be some system of quality assurance.
Yeah.
For every child being educated and heading toward an adult life. Yeah. I don't know. I really do think that my perception is different a little bit from this.
I think mine is too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there are members of my own family where the children are possibly doing really well at home with the combination of being on technology with their public school and then having the family members do some of the schooling.
So maybe like there is a value to having less time at school, kind of like a split. Like, remember one of the episodes we said, well, why don't they do a half day at the public school and a half day at home?
Like a hybrid.
Like a hybrid. So I think there's some really good value to that, because then it's almost like they're getting the best of both worlds. They're getting instruction from a teacher that may be something their parents are not able to instruct them on, and then they go home and they get taught there too. I mean, that might be a really good model.
Well, I mean,
these children.
At this point, when we're recording this episode, I would suspect that most settings are going back to a hybrid, whether it's staggered schedules, kids come every other day, some kids come in the morning, some kids come in the whatever. We're going to end up with staggered schedules in some way, some hybrid, because otherwise the math doesn't work out. You and I have done this on a prior episode.
The math does not work out. It does not work.
You can't tell me that there has to be, 6 feet between kids and put all those kids back in a classroom. Doesn't work.
Unless you're putting an addition on your school real quick, which is not happening.
Right. I want the systems to send a letter home that says this: Dear parents.
I'm afraid of what this is going to be.
Dear parents, the debate has to end. We simply don't have room for all your children at once. Thank you and good day.
They don't have room, okay?
They don't. It has to be dear parents. Dear parents, stop rallying to open school. We don't have room.
We don't have the space. Right. We don't have the space. Please stop. Okay.
Please stop. Yes, we can open on some sort of staggered schedule. Schools were not, our educational systems were not originally built to be childcare in the public school systems. It became that as people became families, as people became families with 2 working parents, or all parents, whoever's there, or all caregivers are working, then it just by default became your child care system. It's not what it's supposed to be.
That's not what it is.
System.
Yeah.
So that's a whole other episode,
that's
Alison, about
debate.
How did education, all right, we need to remember this. How did education become default child care?
I'm going to write it down.
Thank you. Okay. Because it's not what it was intended to be. That being said, I think that we need to take lessons from the fact that some children are thriving at home, and even when this crisis, when and if this crisis passes, and we are able to say, the doors are wide open, everybody come back. We may need to say to some families, or should say to some families, we want to give you the option of maybe not all the time, because you've done such a wonderful job with your child. What do you think?
Yeah, I know.
What do you think, folks?
Can you do that? Yeah.
Or how about this? How about this? We know your child. Right. Can you handle it? How about this? We know your child. We know your child struggled immensely socially. We want to give you the option of how much time your child is going to spend with peers. What do you think, folks, is healthy for your child?
Yeah. Yes. What do you think is healthy and best for your child? Right? Yeah. I think that would be very valid, good questions.
It would be kind of cool. Like if my kids who are in their 20s, right? If the generation that they raise, they're someday sitting around a dinner table saying to their kids, when I went to school, school just happened from 9 to 3 and everybody went and we had no choices. And we were in these big buildings all together, no matter what level you were at, no matter who you were, there was no choice. We all just went to these big buildings and their kids will sit there saying, oh my, that must have been terrible.
God, that must have been awful. That was terrible. You were segregated by age? What? Yeah.
I mean, that's a whole other episode too. If we change our educational systems, we can change the fact that we use chronological age to determine what they should be doing. Yeah. Where's your notebook? Alison? Write that down. It's another episode too. Chronological age doesn't work. Anyone who educates children knows that.
I would love if it was like, I don't know. This is crazy, maybe. Every county, all the schools, it was like not done by like town. So like here's like maybe the town, like this school, it's like a science base, like your kid's really into science, you get to go here. And it doesn't matter what age you are, it doesn't matter. You could be a high schooler or a kindergartner. You want to study science, boom, you go to this school in Rockaway. You know, if you want to study whatever, math, music, whatever. And then the schools become like these like, I don't know, what is that? Subject-based?
We're back to the pods. You and I are back to the pods. We keep talking. All right, so we've come full circle, you and me.
Governor, are you listening to our pod idea?
No one is listening.
Tag a governor.
Tag a governor. Oh my gosh, that's what we have to put in our thing. Please tag a governor.
I don't care what state you guys are from. Just tag your governor, or if you're from Canada, I don't know.
Tag your person. How about this? Tag your education people. We have ideas that no one is listening to at a higher level. How about no? We can't be the only ones. And I'm hoping that we're not the only ones. Look at me. I'm going to bring it back around. Ready? I'm hoping that we are not the only ones saying, some children have thrived at home, and we can't ignore that. We will not be doing these children and families justice if we go back to the way it was, ignoring the fact that they did better at home. Their families may have ways in which we can work with them to continue what they were doing at home. I recognize that some people are going back to work full time and can't devote the same amount of time. That's fine. We still have the schools. So maybe there's a way that we can continue to support that, maybe in some format, in some way, in our angst about the children who are struggling with distance learning. Please let us not forget the ones who have actually done better with it.
Right. We can't ignore what worked for those children simply because people want to just go back to the old normal. Right. You know, we can't ignore that. They thrived. There are things that have worked for some of these children, for some of these families, for some of these teachers. We can't ignore that. You know, and we have to incorporate it.
There are things that work for homeschoolers all the time. They homeschool their children, but they have social groups for them. They have social groups for them. It's not that they have no socialization. That's a myth.
Yeah.
So I think we really need to examine this not only from the standpoint of larger systems, but how has each individual child fared?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Okay. We've done it. We've reached, this is the limit of time you and I do, pretty much. So we're going to end the episode. We'd love to know what you all think about. First of all, go to our contact form on howpreschoolteachersdoit.com or our social media Facebook page, How Preschool Teachers Do It podcast, and let us know, are you a family member of a child who has actually thrived from this time at home? We want your story. We want you to put it out there. We want you to say, hey, wait a minute. I don't want to go back to the way it was, or I need a different way to look at this because my child is doing so well. So please put that out in the world to us, and if you send it directly to us, we will attempt to put it out there. Go to our social media and post, and we'll catch you next time. 5 stars. 5 stars. Rate, review, contact us. You know, the usual begging for 5 stars. And we will,
Yeah.
we will, we will catch you next time on How Preschool Teachers Do It. Sign us off, Alison.